maybe. Hey, welcome in to an impromptu North Idaho Prepcast episode here on IdahoSports.com, Season 5, Episode 18. We missed last week. Scaggs was on the bench trying to recover, and we didn't think this week was going to happen either. I was flying in from Reno, had a long day yesterday. So we're back, though. As always, this Prepcast is being streamed live and free on Facebook, YouTube, and our X account, and our insurance agent, our Cornerstone Insurance. Scaggs, you've been busy as can be. That's our great sponsor. How was yesterday for you, man?
Not fun. So a lot of people had it worse than I did, but we had claims come in and I had some issues of my own. My shed decided that it was tired of living in my backyard and wanted to relocate next door. So that was fun. Had to deal with that one. I was sitting there looking out my kitchen window, drinking coffee yesterday morning while the wind was blowing, and I'm like, I wonder how long we're gonna have power. And all of a sudden, I saw my shed lift a little bit, and I'm like, oh boy, okay. And then next thing you know, there it goes. I mean, I had anchored down with like 4-inch eye bolts through the bottom of it, and it was blowing hard enough that it just straight up ripped those right out of the ground. And I don't know how in the world it didn't take down my fence when it went over. But the opposite fence on the other side of my house went down yesterday morning too. So I had a busy day yesterday doing some demo work and a couple trips to the dump. So that was not fun, but we're here today. And luckily, I mean, for the most part, people in our area, I mean, there's still a lot of folks without power. So I know a lot of good folks in Kendrick are camping right now. Tim Silflow being one of them because they don't have power. Still hearts are out to all the folks that lost property yesterday, but unfortunately somebody lost their life in Coeur d'Alene yesterday due to the windstorm. But other than that, I think that was the only real major loss from the windstorm. But people are going to be digging out for the next few days. That's for sure. The dump looks like a war zone. It was crazy, the amount of stuff that I saw there yesterday.
No, I believe that. Like I said, I was flying from Reno, and we were from Salt Lake. Salt Lake was a scary roller coaster ride flying out of there with as much wind there was. And we were about maybe 5-10 minutes from landing in Lewiston, and they decided to divert us to Portland. And so we went to Portland, and they said it was going to be a pretty quick, turn around, get back on the plane, head to Lewiston. And that didn't happen. 4:00, they said, hey, we're going to put you up in some hotels and you can stay the night, and we'll leave tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. And I said, I'm not really interested. So myself and a guy that I had met, we just got a rental car and we drove home. So we got home around midnight last night. It was a long day, but I'm here. We couldn't have done the Prepcast without it. So
yeah, there was no real good place to land yesterday in Eastern Washington and North Idaho. I know that, Pullman had winds at one point, they topped out, I think, at like 90 miles an hour or something like that is what I saw. And then Spokane was getting hit pretty hard too. So you guys probably were the safe bet going over to the other side of the Cascades trying to land. But yeah, it was just a crazy day. I can imagine traveling in that. I mean, I'm sure the turbulence was a little wild for you guys, but at least we're here. So the lights are on. I'm not complaining.
Yeah, the lights are on. That was a question mark. Well, we, skipped last week, and we still haven't hit the boys preview for the basketball season. And we figured this is probably the last week possible to do that before we're, too deep into it. And so we figured, why not do it right now? So without further ado, let's get into it. This will be in the middle of our screen. We have 6A, 5A, 4A, and 3A. Let's start at the top with 6A. We're a few games into the season. Post Falls, Lake City, Coeur d'Alene. Right now, as it holds today, that's very accurate. Post Falls has some big wins on the year. Coeur d'Alene went down to that Title I Classic in Southern Idaho and won one game there, I believe. But what do you think of 6A? And even last year, Lake City was really good last year. They lost a couple guys like Reese Strawn. What can you expect from 6A?
6A, I really look at it, and we've been talking about Post Falls for the last few years, just because they were so young 4 years ago. They started a whole slew of freshmen and sophomores, and then the year after that, they started a huge group of sophomores that are now seniors this year. And then they have a change of coach. I mean, Coach McLean, who is a legend in basketball in the state of Idaho, he retired. And none other than I couldn't have thought of a better replacement for him. And I knew when they had him on staff, he was probably going to be the heir apparent. But Jason Ulrich, the former Bengal coach, led the Bengals to a state championship, took over for Coach McLean. He's been an assistant in that program for the last few years in Post Falls. And they've hit the ground running. And those kids are excited when Ulrich was given the job. I think extremely highly of Jason. I've known him for years, probably better on going 2 decades. And he's just a phenomenal person and a great coach. And so I look at Post Falls, the ceiling is super high for that group. I mean, they've got great play between Lisney and Carver and just a number of other great parts within that team. There's some serious scoring firepower within that lineup. I think the thing that's going to be unsung that by the end of the year when the dust settles, you're going to see is how good they were defensively. They're a great defensive team, and that's just something that's a hallmark of Ulrich's coaching style is being very disciplined, not turning the ball over, but also getting on the other end and playing defense. So I look at Post Falls. They're my favorite to win league this year. I think the Trojans have a huge ceiling, and they could do some damage come state tournament time. I think 6A of all the years, this might be the most wide open field for 6A. I don't think there's really one clear-cut team that somebody looks at going, oh, got to look out for those guys. And then you look at Lake City too. I mean, they still returned some great players too from last year's team. Yeah, they did lose Reese Strawn. They've got a couple other players that are playing, at JC ball, especially at North Idaho College. So there's some talent that they did lose from that group, but they also returned some great pieces. And Carlson being one of them. Carlson down low he's a monster. I mean, he's like 6'9". He can play inside, play outside. He's kind of one of those stretch forwards, but if you need to post him up in the block, he can definitely take care of business down low on the boards too. Coeur d'Alene, they've got Caden Simmons. We've all known about him and how he can get on a heater. The question mark is going to be the pieces around Caden with that group and a new coach and everything within that unit. I know that they picked up a win against Moscow. They've got some big games in front of them still too, but they did lose some big games as well. So 6A's kind of got some question marks on the tail end. Can Lake City get the consistency? They're scheduled up, to their eyeballs. They're playing the toughest schedule, I think, of any of the 6A teams in the state. So can they weather the storm is going to be the question. And once you get into league play, consistency, is going to be key. So I think the coaches got it right in this sense that how it appears on the screen with Post Falls, Lake City, Coeur d'Alene. I think that's how it's going to finish. But don't be surprised. You can see some of these teams splitting in the regular season for sure.
Yeah, I could totally see that one happening. I really like how cool it is, how well they schedule. In football, we sometimes see them scheduled down a little bit, and they still are. And football is obviously an entirely different landscape. But Lake City, going down to California, I think it was they went down, not California. They played a lot of California teams, went down to the Hawaii tournament and played in that and played against some really good schools there. Post Falls.
They did go to California too, and they're going to Hawaii as well. So, yeah.
Post Falls going to down to Boise, playing a couple teams there. Coeur d'Alene going down to Southern Idaho. There's a lot of Washington schools that they're going to be playing the next few weeks that are really good. So I think that builds well for them heading into the state tournament, even though I think only one seed goes, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and it was a smart move, I think, with those 3 schools to pick up the lion's share of the GSL, the Greater Spokane League, from Eastern Washington, Spokane area, to pick up, because their schedule, if you look at Post Falls, Lake City, and Coeur d'Alene, their schedule for the next 2 weeks is going to be pretty daunting, playing a lot of those Spokane schools. Especially I look at Post Falls. They've got a run coming up, them and Sandpoint. They're going to have, and we'll talk about the girls' side too, but Sandpoint girls, they've got a murderer's row schedule coming up as well. But just playing those GSL teams, because Washington basketball is pretty darn good. And, let's just be real and honest and call a spade, that's a competitive schedule to pick up. You're not necessarily going to get the marks in max preps because of going across state lines, with Washington not using max preps as heavily. They have their own RPI system. So some of the scores aren't going to correlate very well into the rankings. So we'll see how those calculate. But by and large, as far as level of competition, I think they did a great job with their scheduling.
Absolutely. Let's switch over to 5A, and this one is also a very interesting conference. For Moscow, Moscow is definitely the fourth best team in this conference. They're kind of down right now, but the three teams up above, those three are good. And
Yeah.
Sandpoint proved it last week in the Title I tournament down in Southern Idaho. Lewiston's had a couple good games. They played Rocky Mountain really close, that 6A squad. And then Lakeland, too, also a team that's proving to be pretty good. Lewiston, I think, Scaggs, you can always correct me if I'm wrong here. Lewiston went to state last year. Did the other two
Correct.
go? Or did
What's
they
that?
miss out? Did the other two teams go to state last year? Did they miss out?
No,
Or
I think
one
it
of
was
them?
just
Lewiston?
Lewiston at state last year.
So it is interesting to see Lewiston at that 3 spot, even with somebody like Royce Fisher back playing for him. But yeah, Sandpoint looks really good. Logan Roos, obviously, a couple of the other kids there that they have a bright future. I'm excited to watch Sandpoint this year.
Yeah, and I'm actually looking up right now the classification alignments and everything and how many berths come out of 5A this year.
Yeah, so Sandpoint gets 1.5, or not
Yeah,
Sandpoint, sorry. 5A gets 1.5.
Yeah, so they get a 1.5 bid. So you could see two teams coming out of this conference realistically making it to state. Just I look at the competitive balance between, like you said, those top three teams. Lakeland's the one that's got the biggest question mark around it because they can be streaky at times. The talent is there. I mean, the size, everything else, the ability to shoot the ball on the outside is there. Can they put it all together on a night-to-night basis is going to be the question mark. I look at Sandpoint, man. Sandpoint last year, I watched them. I'm like, that's a dangerous team. And they were a little young last year. They're a year older. I mean, they're playing lights out. And you look at the lineup that they bring together, Roos, and you've got, Brayton Buckout's playing not Buckout. I'm sorry. Yarborough. Sorry. Yarborough's playing out of his mind right now. Brock Yarborough is playing absolutely phenomenal ball right now. So, that's a group to keep an eye on. Sandpoint, I'm really high on them right now just because of the competition they've played thus far and how they've done. They responded really well. I mean, they lost to a Star Valley, Wyoming team by 1 in OT. That same team beat Coeur d'Alene by 20 the night before. So, there's a lot of balance within this conference. I think Lewiston Sandpoint's 1A, 1B right now. I look at those two as kind of being the favorite coming out as it sits now. But like I said, Lakeland, if they can put things together, you never know. So they have, like I said, they've got the size and the ability. They're just gonna have to get the consistency under the reins and see if they can make things interesting once they hit the meat of the league schedule.
Absolutely, that'll all happen late in the January timeframe. All right, 4A. Well, they're both tied for first. Both coaches decide to vote for each other, I would hope, or themselves. It could be either or. Bonners Ferry, the state champ from last year, lost a lot. Thomas Bateman, Asher Williams, both gone, both graduated. So now a new group kind of steps in to fill those shoes. And Timberlake's no slouch themselves.
No.
Does Timberlake have a chance this year in the Intermountain League?
I think so. I think it's wide open. I mean, Bonners Ferry returns a few good pieces from that group last year. I mean, Abubakari's back, but it's going to be interesting. Timberlake, it's kind of weird to say that Timberlake brings back, I think, more experience than Bonners Ferry. And that's a team that made, a couple of back-to-back runs to state titles. The Tigers are going to have to figure it out and play better defense. I mean, let's just be honest. But they've had a tough one against Wallace earlier in the year. They came back and beat Wallace the next time around by 10. I don't really think either team – I mean, Bonners Ferry early on has played the tougher schedule, in my opinion, because they played a lot of those 5A schools. They played them fairly tough, but still took some lumps. But I think Bonners Ferry has the tougher strength of schedule thus far. But, I mean, there's a lot to be seen. But by the time, the dust settles in the 4A Intermountain League.
Big thing, only a half seed goes to state, and you're playing the 3 seed out of District 3. And
that's tough because District 3 looks really good this year. Yeah. District 3 looks really tough. So, I mean, is this the year that maybe you don't see a team out of District 1 at state? I mean, they're going to have their hands full once tourney time happens because District 3, you look at the depth within that conference, there's some really good teams there. And McCall, who was good last year, got only better with the transfer of Joyce coming in. So, I mean, like there's, some more athletes in that school. I mean, McCall Donnelly's going to be tough. Let's just be real. So, I mean, they return a lot of parts off of last year's team that had a good showing. I had them in the state tournament last year. that was a good group. It really was. And there's a lot of pieces back this year. That team should be poised to make another deep run.
Yep, there's also Coal Valley Christian,
Yep.
and then also Snake River as well, the team that
Well,
lost
Snake
a bunch.
River's just Snake River's in the east, but yeah.
No, yeah, correct. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I guess over it as a whole, yes.
Yes.
All right, 3A, St. Mary's with a huge win last week against Kendrick. I didn't think St. Mary's was there, but holy cow, boy, was I wrong. Brian Chase got those boys going, and they look
and
good.
his 200 career victory too. That was a big win for him.
Not a better time to come against a team like Kendrick. That gave them their first loss, and who knows how long. They also Kellogg at the 2 spot, players like Drayden Taylor leading them there. Orofino's a tough 3 seed. I guess they're tied for second. Orofino's a really good team. They finally have this group of seniors that's now at the finally they were starting since they were sophomores, and now they're finally seniors, and this is a group that has a ton of aspirations. That's a team that went to state last year. And then Priest River and Grangeville fighting for those 4th and 5th spot. Grangeville's a team that has again 4 or 5 juniors, a year behind Orofino, and so can Grangeville put it together? That's a question. Their season started off really rough with some losses to Prairie and Nez Perce and a few others, so that's a question mark down there as well. But do you think Kellogg and Orofino, do they can play with Brian Chase and the boys up in St. Mary's?
I think Orofino, yeah. Kellogg is the question mark in my opinion. You look at their schedule. They've lost to Kendrick by 27? 37. They lost to Lakeland by 4, and then they lost to Orofino by 4. So it's a team that, you look at and it's like, hey, there's some pieces there that you think that they could put things together. Kellogg's going to be at the Avista tournament. They're going to play Lewiston right after Christmas. So you want to see how is Kellogg? How are they good? They're going to have to play a good 5A school right there, and we'll see. But that conference, I think, is more balanced than people want to give it credit for. I do see St. Mary's being really good. Priest River is another team that nobody's really talking about either, that was on the upswing last year, that returned some nice parts to that group as well. So that's a team to keep an eye on. I know that they lost to Riverside a couple times and then lost to Timberlake to start the year off. But, they did get a win over Grangeville as well last weekend. They're going to play Sandpoint tonight. So if Priest River wants to show their mettle, what can they do? That they're going to have to show up against the Bulldogs tonight in that ball game. But I think the conference as a whole, as far as balance from 1 through 4 or 5, this might be one of the more competitive leagues that we see this year within North Idaho.
Yeah, I would agree with you. St. Mary's is the team that lost to Sandpoint by 10 to start the year. And so when I saw that, I was like, okay, they're legit. And then ended up beating Kendrick in overtime as well. So it's a really good group there.
Coach Chase has a great group there. And he's a phenomenal coach anyways. He's been there for a minute, and they've got a state championship under their belt with him leading the helm. And so, I know he's going through his health battles as well, but he's still showing up day in and day out, and things are still looking good down in St. Mary's. So, the Lumberjacks have got a great group of kids. There's a bunch of talent. That's a very athletic team. I don't think they've got the size that they've had in years past, but you talk about athleticism, they've got it in spades with that group on the floor.
Yep, they're a team to watch. All right, well, the quote-unquote 8-man teams is up next in the basketball landscape. At the top, 2A White Pine, it looks like Kendrick, Prairie, Kamei, Logos, Lapway, Potlatch, and Troy. I'll tell you what I know from right now. Lapway is undervalued. They are a much better
they're
team. They're
sleeping on the Wildcats. Right, yeah,
100%. Lapway is a good team. I would probably put Lapway at that 3 spot, 2 or 3. Prairie's a good squad this year. Kamei still trying to get Lawson Landmark back from an injury that happened. Well, he actually had surgery to end football season right after the season started, and then practiced a couple days, had another injury during basketball, and so he's trying to get back into the lineup as well. So Kamei is a team to maybe keep their eye on, but they're still trying to get back healthy. Logos is without Seamus Wilson, so that's a team that's trying to find who's going to step up. Right now it's Nate Mondry or Gideon Haney, and then Potlatch obviously has to fill the loss of losing one of the level kids. Lost Everett. Now you have Chase Level, the only level left. And so hopefully they can put something together as well. But what do you think? We know Kendrick is really good, Scaggs. What do you think about the middle half of this conference?
I mean, I think it's pretty balanced. I mean, Prairie's a really good team. I think there's Prairie and Lapway are two clubs I think folks are sleeping on. In 2A, are they going to win a state championship? I don't think they've got the firepower there, but I certainly think the coaching is there. You got Zach Eastman leading that Wildcat team. He's just a great motivator of athletes. I mean, he can take those C+ guys and turn them into A- B+ players. That's the type of coach that Coach Eastman is. So the fact that Lapway is off to a hot start doesn't shock me at all. They're going to have their tests coming up, though. So we're going to see how good are the Wildcats. Can they pull out some of those games that, were kind of pick'ems? If they can come out on the winning edge of those, the district tournament's going to be fun. Let's just be real about that. I mean, you could see some games that are just going to go down the wire that I wouldn't expect. I mean, there's been years past in the White Pine especially where you get multiple OT games in the district tournament. This could be the year that you get a lot of those because 1 through 6 are teams that people could say like, oh yeah, I could see them at state. Like realistically, you look at some of those groups, but I think the biggest question mark of the group is Logos being at 4 there. How are they going to adjust to having the loss of the offensive output they had last year? They're going to need more points. They're going to need guys to step up that, they're a lot of bench presence. Let's just be honest. They're going to have to be able to slow down some of these teams' ability to score, especially Prairie and Kendrick. They like to get out and run the floor. So, I think it's pretty close. I mean, I think Lapway got slept on pretty hard. I still think Potlatch is a pretty good team too. I realistically could move those up and put Logos towards the back end, but this is just my worthless opinion. But I mean, Kamiah is another team that they're taking lumps right now because they're without their best player. They're going to have to figure it out. If he comes back and they can get back on a run, that's another team that could be challenging.
Yeah, I mean, that's also a team that's missing David Clute, who's now starting at College of Idaho as a freshman. Yep. So, that shows you how good David Clute was last year.
And another note to go back to 4A real quick. Asher Williams last night plays for Montana Tech. They beat the Grizz last night in a game, and he was the leading scorer in the game, starting as a freshman for Montana Tech, had 20 points last night. So awesome job by Asher in that game. And they're a great team. That's an NAIA team that will challenge. They'll probably be playing in the Final 8 for sure. That's a great team that they've got over there in Butte.
Yep. So in the White Pine League, only 1.5 seeds go, same as the girls. So there will likely be maybe 1 or 2 teams sitting home that could be playing in, the second day of the state tournament. So that's something to keep your eye on. In 3A, we didn't touch on this. 2 seeds go. So we switch back to 3A real quick, there's a really good chance, even if you are a 3 or a 4 seed, you can still get into the state tournament.
Oh, yeah.
So
Orfino did it last year. I mean, I think they were the 5th,
really cool
4th seed. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's look at 2A in the Scenic Idaho Conference. You can see that barely on the top of your screen. Lakeside number 1, Wallace 2, Genesis Prep 3, and Clark Fork at 4. I think Genesis Prep scored 110 the other day against Genesis Prep. Lakeside did? Yes. Lakeside did, yes. Lakeside did.
I think is what it was.
Yeah. And Tyson, Charlie, and Jalapeon were they scored 6 and 8 points. So very balanced group. And Lakeside, that's a team to keep your eye on. Man, that team lost in the 3rd place game last year? Maybe they did take 3rd place. They lost in the semi. So that's a team that is back with about the same amount of firepower as they had just last year. They're looking for a state title. Then Wallace with, Cooper Miller, Lennox Radford, a couple of the guys there. That's another team to keep your eye on in the Scenic Idaho Conference.
Lakeside is deadly. I mean, we've seen them on a run for the last, few years and winning a state championship a couple years ago, beating a really good Lapway team in OT. And then, last year they lost to Kamiah in the semis, then lost to Grace in that 3rd place game, like you said. So, but that's a motivated group. I mean, you look at the lineup that they've got, some great players in that group. Tyson Charlie's back in his senior year. Jalapeon is there as well. They've got some other guys that were on the roster last year as underclassmen. A lot of freshmen got some time. So it's going to be interesting to see, how they can turn things around with this group and see if they can get over the hump again. This is a team that could challenge just based on, Jalapeon and Tyson Charlie alone. Those are matchup nightmares for anybody. And I mean, I say anybody, I'm even talking Kendrick, they're going for you. And I know that the Tigers, they got clipped by St. Mary's last week. This is a team that they're playing with some gusto. They've got a big tournament in Welpinit coming up at the New Year, and then they're going to play the meat of their league schedule, a couple of crossover games with Genesee. They've got one with Bonners Ferry, which is a game to keep an eye on as well. They're going to play Prairie, which is another good game. Playing returns with Timberlake and Bonners Ferry as well. So they're doing a home and home with Prairie. I think that's a great scheduling. If you want to see a litmus test for Lakeside and Prairie, like that, that's going to be your test of who's going to make state, in my opinion. Lakeside comes out of that schedule. If they can pick up and bankroll some big wins, this is a team I would not want to see at the state tournament. And hopefully we would see them seated opposite Kendrick.
Yes, that would be the goal, depending on how Max Prep's rankings come out. All right, 1A White Pine League right now. Clearwater Valley at the top. They had a big win the other night against Nespers after being down 10. Deary at the number 2 spot. Genesee at 3. Nespers 4. Timberlake 5. And St. John Bosco at 6. St. John Bosco did beat Deary the other night. Genesee and Deary played earlier this week, and Genesee won after Deary being up 10. This conference, I'm not kidding you, I could see any one of these 6 going to the state tournament.
Yeah, I really do see, though, like the Clearwater Valley, Nez Timberline. Timberline right now is actually, I think, playing ahead of schedule. If you look at what they've been able to do, they've got a win over St. John Bosco. Yes, they did lose by 35 to Orfino. They got a big win over Deary. They're going to play Genesee this weekend. They've got a return trip to Deary. There's some points on that schedule for Timberline. They're going to have to get some big wins. It's a team that doesn't have a huge roster. Play a little shorthanded just because of the school size. Deary at the 2 is, for me, kind of a question mark based on what I've seen thus far. I don't know. They could tend to get on a run later in the year, but Clearwater Valley right now is looking like a clear-cut favorite, but I say that with an asterisk because, as you said, this is a very balanced conference.
And Clearwater Valley was also the team last year that swept the entire league and dropped down from 2A, right? They opted to come down, and then district tournament time come around, and they didn't make the state tournament. So That's something that they're missing. They also don't have Hyson Scott. He transferred out. That's a huge loss for Clearwater Valley, who steps into those shoes. That's a huge question for that group as well. All right, North Star League, Coeur d'Alene, Kootenai, and Mullen. Coeur d'Alene, only been around for a couple years, and 1 seed gets to go out of District 1. And Scaggs, is Coeur d'Alene league to lose?
I think so. Yeah, Kootenai's got a solid player as well, but Coeur d'Alene just has the firepower. You look at what they're able to have in their lineup, top to bottom. They've got a more complete roster, I would say. And you look at firepower and size and the ability to play inside, outside. Coeur d'Alene, I think, is the clear-cut favorite. It would take a catastrophic collapse for them, I think, to not get the bid to state. So there's not really a ton to talk about within that conference. Coeur d'Alene is a pretty good club, though. You saw them have to schedule outside their league quite a bit this year to obviously, with a 3-team conference, you're going to have to complete a schedule. They're 3-2 right now, so we've got a chance to see them a little bit. They beat Mullen by 47. They beat Clark Fork by 15. So, it's going to be interesting. They did play Coeur d'Alene's JV team and took a loss by 30, but they're going to play Lakeside coming up after the new year. Then they got Wallace, Clark Fork, Priest River. That's going to be their challenge. And then they play Clearwater Valley. So we want to see where Coeur d'Alene stands. I think that's going to be kind of the dart on the dartboard is that Clearwater Valley game for other 1A teams to see a challenge of if they compete at state.
Yep, no doubt about it. Well, Scaggs, every week we do a North Idaho 9. We rank all the top teams in the state of what we think is our opinion, right? I don't know, probably not. But here's what we got for the week. So In the girls' landscape, it goes Coeur d'Alene, Sandpoint, Lakeland, Lapway, Grangeville, Prairie, Deary, Timberlake, and then Kellogg to round out that group. And then on the boys' side, Post Falls, Lake City, Sandpoint, Lewiston, St. Mary's, Lakeside, Kendrick, Orofino, and then tied at 9 is Lapway and Prairie. What do you think, Scaggs? The only team that I'm kind of on the question mark right now is Grangeville's at 5 after dropping back-to-back games against two teams that aren't even on the list right now.
Yeah, but I still look at coaching and talent, and I know that they were without one of their better players in one of those games too. And so, I don't hold a ton of weight in that loss, but in one of those losses. But I think if they get a return trip with Cami, I really do think that they could probably win that game. Cami is a good team. They're just on the outside looking in. I mean, you'd have a couple teams that are out there on the girls' landscape that could realistically find their way on the list again. I mean, Nez is another one of those teams to keep an eye on too. Kellogg, to me, is kind of the question mark in my opinion. Their two losses that they've got thus far were both the teams, one from Tennessee and another one from, was it Georgia or something like that, and they picked up a win against a team from Oklahoma. So, Kellogg, they're going to have a challenging road within their league schedule with Grangeville being there. But out of that conference, if two get to go to state, that's a team to keep an eye on. We've seen their size, but they've got an underclassman that can shoot the lights out too. So, it's going to be interesting to see how things kind of shake up down the road. The one team I think that's been the most impressive, besides the Sandpoint, Coeur d'Alene, Lakeland up there at top, Deary. Deary has been lights out, and I was high on them going into the season in our preview show, and I'm still high on that team. I think they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. 1A is going to be pretty competitive this year. I mean, let's just be honest. You got some really good teams out of District 3 and 1A, and a few, from Eastern Idaho as well. But this is a team with the lineup that they put out there. They can compete with anybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the one team that I look at on the girls' side is Lapway with the schedule, and you can ask Coach Mater about it. She wishes she had a more difficult schedule, but she's taking care of business with everything she has. She hasn't lost a game yet to start her campaign with the Wildcats. So I know Lori Mater's excited about that, and her girls have looked really good when they've played. On the boys, the team that I look at is Kendrick. Kendrick dropped from this 3 seed all the way down to 7 after a loss to St. Mary's. Kendrick's probably looking like, what in the world did we do to drop down to 7? That's the lowest they've probably ever seen in their life. But that's a team that's really good, and I would expect them to be fighting for the top. And then Orofino is a good team as well. And then Prairie Lapway. I think that those two teams, we talked about it before. We weren't sure where to put, that triangle there at the bottom, how to rank those teams. But I think Prairie and Lapway at the bottom those two teams are as close as it could get at this point.
Yeah. And I think we could have argued to put all 3 of those teams at 8.
But they're very evenly matched right now.
Very evenly matched group. So, Kendrick is at 7. More as a motivation factor from us. This isn't us poo-pooing on them at all. I'm not afraid of dropping one game to St. Mary's in OT. They're going to get another chance against the Lumberjacks later this year. So, we can take the hate if we want, but I think at the same time, that's not sliding Lakeside in what they've done so far. I mean, like, good night, you're winning the game by almost 90 points. And then you throw in, St. Mary's has been looking really good thus far. Sandpoint to me right now is kind of one of those teams I look at and I'm like, they're pretty darn good. Like, you watch them, you get your eyeballs on how they play. That's a group that you're like, okay, I could see this team with Coach Love now coaching the boys team. He's a phenomenal basketball coach. And so the leadership with that group, I think, is what's going to take this unit to another level. The talent was there last year, but this leadership change, I think, is going to be the key piece for this group that might get them over the hump and into the state tournament and win a couple ball games. That's a team they've got offensive ability, but they've got size. They got the ability to play defense down low. So Sandpoint at the 3 seed, I think, is the team really to keep an eye on as the season wanes on.
Absolutely. Well, two more graphics before we quickly almost get out of here. This is a wrong graphic. The boys' top basketball teams in the area. Sean Kane, Joel Richardson, and yourself and I go through and we pick out the top teams that we can find throughout the state of Idaho. And I'll give you
I
who we
didn't
have
pick
it.
this week. Sean picked
Yeah,
for
that's
me.
Sean. That's Sean's fault. So Sean actually ranked Scaggs because he had too busy trying to find his fence. But at the moment, I have Cuna, Sandpoint, Coal Valley Christian, St. Mary's, Lakeside, and Mackey. And then Scaggs, you have Post Falls, Lewiston, Snake River, New Plymouth, Kendrick, and Rockland. Outside of the Lewiston
4A
one, I know
through
you're upset
1A,
about Lewiston.
I'm
What do you think about
4A,
it? Yeah.
yeah, 4A through 1A, I'm confident with those picks because he just copy and pasted from last week. I still think those teams look pretty good. 6A and 5A, I still think Post Falls, even though they took a lump to Cuna, that's a game they probably want back. That's it. I still think Post Falls is right there. Lewiston to me is the question mark. And I said off air, I was like, I'm not as confident in the Bengals right now, but if Royce Fisher can turn things around offensively with that group and Brooks Malm leading the way, the Bengals are still going to be there. So those are two clubs I still think are close. I don't know if they're the best team in 5 and 6A right now, but I still think they're pretty darn good. Best team in 5A. What I've seen from Preston, they're pretty ridiculous. I mean, they're kind of a copy of last year. That team is it reminds me of Florida Gulf Coast from, what was it, the mid 20 teens where they had Dunk City or whatever it was. Yeah, that group is fun to watch. 6A, like I said, is wide open. That is a classification I think you could throw a dart at the field and you're going to be correct. I really don't feel confident in any one pick because it's early in the season too. We're only 2 weeks in or 3 weeks in now, so a lot can change. But from what I've seen, of the two between Lewiston and Post Falls, I feel the most confident. But Cuna did look pretty darn good, and that's in the comments. Beating Middleton last night. Cuna's for real. They're a legit contender this year.
Yeah, Cuna looked really good against Middleton from Paul Kingsbury. What do you know? He's watching the chat. That's cool.
He's probably shocked that something's live right now on a Thursday this early in the morning.
Surprised we're up or we're not working. Lapway's the one team on the radar in boys basketball from the 2A landscape, and then girls. Scaggs, you have Eagle, Sandpoint, Sugar Salem, Malad, Grace, and Salmon River. Myself, I have Middleton, Mountain Home, Timberlake, Malad, Butte County, and Deary. Butte County. I thought at the beginning of the year, okay, Lapway, Prairie, those are two really good teams. They are. Butte County, holy cow, that's a different animal. They're upset they didn't do better, last year. And holy cow, that team looks tough. The other team, Mountain Home in Sandpoint, they played last week in that Title I Classic. That was a dogfight. Mountain Home ended up getting the win, and then Middleton also looks really good to start the year as well. That's my takeaway. The girls' landscape.
Yeah, I still think Eagles pretty darn good. I mean, Middleton's right there too. The SIC and the girls, you want to talk about the top echelon groups, that's pretty close. I'm still high on Sandpoint on the girls' side. I think that's a really good team. Joel picked Lakeland, which I still think is a great pick too. Timberlake is the question mark. I'm looking at you, kind of scratching my head with that pick. That's not me sliding the Tigers at all, but they've had a tough schedule, man. So yeah, they're gonna have to get some wins as the season goes on. Bonner's Ferry's already trying to make some noise right now, saying hey, we're still around too. We exist. So they got a big win last week as well. But yeah, we talk about the rest of those groups, and Salmon River, I'm still sticking with that pick. I'm going to ride that one the rest of the way. I think Salmon River looks very, very good at 1A. They are a dominant girls program.
Yep. Yeah. Last basketball thing of the day before we switch over to wrestling. We do have a doubleheader tomorrow night in Nez Perce. Deary and Nez Perce, boys and girls, will kick off on IdahoSports.com. That'll be at 6 and then at 7:30. I haven't been to Nez Perce in 10 years, so that'll be a new experience.
Hopefully you got internet. Yeah.
Hey, Adam Keith said we do, so I hope we're in the clear. But yeah, Nez Perce and Deary on Idaho Sports tomorrow night. The girls game I'm really looking forward to at 6:00. That's going to be probably one of the best 1A games you can find.
Yep.
And then also the boys game is going to be a real deciding factor of where those two teams line up. But Scaggs, I'm going to hand it over to you entirely Tell me what you know about wrestling. Next week, we're going to hit on it a lot more before we hit the Christmas holidays.
So, wrestling, obviously, we're still really early, very early in the season. The first big test of the year is coming up this weekend at North Idaho College. We got Tri-State happening this weekend. That's going to be, there's a whole slew of guys locally here in District 1 and 2 that are looking to find their way to the podium. And that's a big tournament. If you're placing at Tri-State, the odds of placing at state are significantly high. Like it's just kind of one of those events. I'll be lucky to be on the PA address for that one for finals. So I'll be able to see some of these guys firsthand. Looking at the landscape, Post Falls defending state champs at 6A, they graduated some dudes. They graduated some really, really quality guys. A lot of them are wrestling at the next level. Are we going to get another repeat state champ out of the North? It's going to be tough sledding this year. I do look at statewide, the balance per weight class is right there. It's going to be fun to see how some of these guys come out. Out of a one bid, district, it's where you got District 3 gets like 2 or 3 bids. It's going to be really interesting to see how many of these teams rely on the at-large bid process to get those extra guys into the state tournament. Does Post Falls repeat? I don't know. Are they going to get a podium finish? I believe so, 100%. I don't know if they're going to be able to hoist the blue trophy at the end of the year, but of all the years, they're going to have a showing like they did last year, because I think the same questions existed going into the season, and as the season went on, they got stronger and stronger, and those number 2s started to wrestle out of their mind. So there's a lot of experience for the state tournament. Coeur d'Alene looks really good this year. There's some quality wrestlers for the Vikings that are coming back. You look at Lakeland's going to be pretty solid at 5A as well. Sandpoint's got a couple kids in 5A. They're going to be really good. They're going to probably find some podium finishes come state tournament time. I think the big thing that's going to noteworthy is girls wrestling. The participation numbers are through the roof, which is awesome to see. The girls state tournament last year, there was still some holes that were in the roster, in the lineups there, and in the brackets. But I think as we get more participation, you're going to start seeing the cream start to rise to the top. And girls wrestling is putting itself on the map nationally within the state of Idaho. And so, folks like Val Johansson up at Sandpoint, there's a lot of folks that have had their hand in this of just growing the sport. And participation numbers, like I said, are just astronomically blowing up. And you go down to the middle school levels, like Moscow's got like 25 girls that wrestle at the middle school level now. So like some of these programs are just looking really, really good. You're still going to have really high quality kids coming from these smaller schools. You're not going to have the numbers where you've got a full roster of like 15 to 20 girls, but you're going to have 5 or 6. And out of those 5 or 6, 3 or 4 of them are going to be really, really solid. Like schools like Potlatch, stuff like that. So something to keep an eye on. Obviously, always tune into the Matt Chat Prepcast that's here on IdahoSports.com. And then a scoop, if you want to put the comment up, I'm excited for this one because next week we get our first statewide wrestling ranking coming out next week on IdahoSports.com. So you want to know where some of these guys fall and some of these girls fall. They're going to have big tests coming up. These tournaments over break get huge. Tri-State this weekend. And then you're starting to get into the meat of the schedule to where you're going to get some huge tournaments. You're going to get Raleigh Lane down in District 3. You're going to get, some of the huge tournaments over on the east side as well. And these kids are going to put in the miles over the next month and a half to finally try to punch their ticket to state. And then we're only, I think 2 years out from state being in the Kibi Dome. So it's something to keep an eye on. It's kind of cool. There's a little excitement in the air for wrestling here in the state of Idaho.
Hey, who knows? Maybe Scaggs, you and I will be calling a wrestling match at the U of I in 2 years.
Dude, I'd dig that. That would be awesome. That'd be fun.
That'd be that'd be fun. That would be a blast. I'd look forward to that. Yeah, I'm excited to learn all more as much as I can about wrestling. I'm sure Paul Kingsbury is really, a big component of all these rankings that come out each week in the wrestling landscape, if I had to guess.
Well, Al Fontes, does a great job too with our recaps. He does our wrestler of the week. He picks them all, and he does such a great job. And we're just lucky to have him in the state of Idaho because he's nationally known with the sport of wrestling. So we've got some heavy hitters within our lineup of broadcasters and contributors here with Idaho Sports that are very, very well seated within the world of wrestling. And so the rankings as they come out are going to be pretty darn accurate. I mean, they're going to be coming through Flow Wrestling and all the other stuff now, because it used to be track and all that fun stuff. But it's going to be exciting. And the first big test of the year is coming up this weekend here in Coeur d'Alene with Tri-State.
Well, that'll be fun, and I look forward to it. Yeah. Well, we finally finished this episode, a day late, a day late.
A week and a half late, but yeah, go ahead.
A week and a half late. Yeah, you're right. But we're excited. We were glad that we could be able to bring this Prepcast to you guys. And always, if you missed it, tune in on the aftermath of it and watch it. One last comment here from Paul. The ranking crew remains anonymous for obvious reasons, but I can confirm that Alphonsus is not one of them, or Paul Kingsbury. That's probably good if Paul's not. It'd be like Paul. It'd be like if I was ranking soccer. That wouldn't be a good idea. I don't know enough about soccer, but we're all learning. It's a learning curve for everyone.
That's right.
But that'll be it for us on the North Idaho Prepcast. Thanks for tuning in. That's Ryan Scaggs. I'm Hayden Uhlenkott. We will see you next week before the Christmas holidays.